When it comes to creating and capturing content, whether it's video or photos, all three of these cameras are really great. The Sony a6400, the Sony ZV-1, and the Sony ZV-E10. However, they all have different strengths and weaknesses, and for people just getting started or looking to level up their content, these are all great options. But which one should you buy? That's why in this video, I'll be breaking down all the features and the best use cases for each of these cameras so that you know which one to buy.
You gotta just press record.
Hey, what's up? It's Omar Corey with Think Media, and this channel is all about the best tips and tools to help build your influence using online video. And so oftentimes we do camera reviews as well as comparisons. And we also talk about the best strategies to help grow your audience. So if you're interested in something like that, be sure to hit the subscribe button. But first, I want to kick off this video by talking about all the similarities that these cameras have. The first thing I would say is that these are all great cameras to create content with. They have microphone input, so if you want to plug in an external mic, you can. They have clean HDMIs, which means you could plug it into your computer or laptop and have a clean feed if you plan on live streaming or using it for video conference calls. All three of these cameras don't have a record limit, so you can record as long as your memory card can hold or as long as your battery can last, which is really cool and something that most cameras didn't do in the past. And all these cameras have incredible autofocus, so you never have to worry about being out of focus. And specifically the ZV-1 and the ZV-E10 have what is called product showcase mode. And so if you're wanting to get into product reviews or makeup tutorials or something and you want to hold something up to the camera, it'll focus on whatever you are holding up, and then when you put it down, it'll actually focus back on your face, which is a cool feature that those two cameras have. But either way, for photo and video, incredible autofocus across all three cameras. So now let's talk price. At the time of shooting this video, the Sony ZV-1 comes in at $748 here in the US. The Sony ZV-E10 with the kit lens comes in at $798, and the Sony a6400 with the kit lens comes in at $998 here in the US at the time of shooting this video. Now it's important to note that because the Sony a6400 and the ZV-E10 are interchangeable lens cameras, meaning you can take off the lens and change them, you can actually save some money by just buying the body of the camera and then buying a lens you know you want. However, much of this video is all based around the kit lens because most people will just buy the camera with the lens that comes with it. Now, if you want to check out these cameras in depth, be sure to check out the links down in the description, specifically Amazon links, because you can actually save some money buying these used, and Amazon does warranty their used products, so that's just something to look out for when you're shopping for these cameras. Now, as far as what I believe is the best value when it comes to the price and what you get, I would give that to the Sony ZV-E10 simply because it's a camera priced, I think, really well compared to the a6400, being they're very similar, but you actually get a little bit more with the Sony ZV-E10 being it's a newer camera and they've made some improvements over the years. And I do like the idea that it is an interchangeable lens camera, so I can grow with this camera by adding lenses around it. And so that's something you can't do with the Sony ZV-1, but just being $50 more, I think the best value is the ZV-E10. Next is photography. All three of these cameras shoot great photos. However, the Sony ZV-1 has a 20 megapixel count and the other two cameras have a 24 megapixel count, making them a little bit better for photography. And they are also better for photography because of the interchangeable lens factor. But all that to say, you're getting a little bit more resolution when it comes to the other two bodies. It's also important to note that the 6400 and the ZV-E10 have a APS-C sensor, meaning it's going to do a little bit better in low light when it comes to photo and video, whereas the ZV-1 having a 1-inch sensor won't do all that good when it comes to low light, depth of field, or a blurry background, and things like that. As far as video quality and resolution, all three cameras shoot 4K up to 30 frames per second, meaning you can also shoot in 24 frames per second in 4K, and then you can shoot up to 120 frames per second in 1080. Now, the a6400, when you tap into 1080, isn't nearly as good looking as the 4K resolution in this camera. Like, it's a huge drop. With the other two cameras being a little bit more newer to the market, you're gonna get more of a sharper image out of the ZV-1 and the ZV-E10 at 1080p. Now, like I mentioned moments ago, sensor size does play a role when it comes to low light and blurry background, and so that still applies when it comes to these cameras. The ZV-1 won't do the best in the low light out of the other two. However, what is cool is if you supply any camera, whether it be your smartphone or one of these cameras with good lighting, you're gonna get great looking video. And what's cool about the ZV-1 is that there's actually an internal ND filter, or essentially an internal sunglass for this camera that when you shoot outside, you can get a nice blurry background and keep your settings intact, whereas the other two cameras, you'll have to buy what is called an ND filter, or something that would screw in front of the lens. But what's cool about the ZV-1 is that they have it on the inside. However, when it comes to video quality, I would give it to the ZV-E10 and the ZV-1 for sharpness in 1080 and in 4K. Now let's talk build and ergonomics. The Sony ZV-1 is a compact point and shoot camera with the built-in lens. You can't remove the lens. However, you can add a wide angle lens to the end of it. And we've made a video on this lens to get more of a wider look. And a lot of people are doing that who have the ZV-1 because the lens is fixed. And then you have the other two cameras, which are APS-C cameras, which mean they are still small in nature. All three of these cameras are fairly small. But as far as the 6400 versus the ZV-E10, the ZV-E10 is a smaller camera and has just a smaller footprint, which is nice. What's cool about all three of these cameras is they all have screens that flip back at you. So if you are filming yourself or you're vlogging, you can see yourself. However, the 6400 has a tilt up screen, and then the other two cameras have an articulating tilt screen, meaning it comes off to the side and you can see yourself that way. With the 6400, it kind of poses an issue if you want to put an external microphone on top of the camera. So you'll kind of have to rig it out or get a special accessory to be able to see yourself and put a mic on the camera. But what's cool about the other two cameras is because the screen comes out on the side, you can just throw whatever mic you want on the top. Now, as a content creator myself, I'm a fan of the button layout on the ZV-1 and the ZV-E10. They put a big record button on top of the camera as opposed to the 6400. It's just like a tiny button off to the side, which could get kind of annoying, especially if you're filming yourself. But also they really kept in mind the beginner with these cameras, so you can press a button and then automatically the settings will override and give you a blurry background. It's called the defocus mode, which is super nice. And I know a lot of people would appreciate that. So if you're taking a photo or video and you hit defocus, it's just gonna do everything in its power to give you a blurry background. The Sony ZV-1, being a compact point and shoot camera, takes a very small battery, whereas the other two take Sony's famous NP-FW50 batteries, which is important to note works longer on the ZV-E10 because they've improved it a little bit over the 6400. And the Sony ZV-1 has a smaller battery, which means it would die the fastest out of the two with heavy usage. Either way, I would encourage whoever buys these cameras to invest into more batteries or even a continuous power adapter, especially if you plan on using any of these cameras as a stationary camera to get that power adapter. But either way, the ZV-E10 does the best with battery life. Another quirky thing that you might have to look into is with the ZV-1, they put the tripod screw in a very weird, awkward position where if you had a tripod plate on the camera, you cannot open the battery door or the memory card door. So it's kind of inconvenient. But similarly to the a6400 where you have to buy something to relocate, the cold shoe mount, you have to buy something to relocate the screw mount. Those are maybe some things you might want to look into, because if you plan on even vlogging with this, you're gonna have to constantly screw off the plate to be able to get access to the battery door. But really, I think that's just something to consider and make note of. And so when it comes to the build and ergonomics, I would give that to the Sony ZV-E10 once again, because I essentially believe they took a lot of what the 6400 lacked and then the awesome things about the ZV-1 and made this camera. And with it being a newer camera and I think priced right, it's just a better camera when it comes to size and what you get, especially with the battery life and things like that. Now, if you want compact though, if you want to put a camera in your pocket, then obviously the ZV-1 is a great option for that. But I'm just coming from a place of best value with what you get. When it comes to stabilization, all three cameras don't have what is called in-body image stabilization, meaning there's no physical feature inside of the camera that's gonna help stable your footage or photos. However, the Sony a6400 doesn't have any solution when it comes to stabilizing your video. The ZV-1 and the ZV-E10 both have what is called standard and active steady shot, meaning that there is a digital stabilization that comes in these cameras. And honestly, I wouldn't say it's all that awesome in the ZV-E10. It looks very jittery and wobbly when you have it active. The ZV-1 does a little bit better when it comes to this use. However, it's important to note that when you have active steady shot on, the camera will crop in a little bit. And I would assume that if you wanted to use this for vlogging use cases, that you would want something like that turned on. It would just be important to note that you have a wider lens to compensate for that crop in. I mentioned the Sony ZV-1 has a wide angle attachment that you can add on, and a lot of people add this on and then turn on active steady shot, and it acts as it didn't take away the crop, but then they also make not only wider lenses lenses for the interchangeable cameras, but they also make lenses that have what is called optical steady shot. And so what's cool is that when you buy the kit lens that comes with the ZV-E10 or the 6400, the lens actually has optical steady shot, which is another added layer of stabilization. So it's important to note. Now, if you have gotten any value in this video, let me know by hitting the like button. That would be so appreciated. But now I just want to break down use cases for these cameras based off of which one you should go with. Obviously, up to this point, it's kind of note that like the a6400 is just a little bit outdated. I think it is important to note too that the 4K, although it can record, no record limit, is that there is a tendency for it to overheat in 4K, and we've even had those issues with the a6400. So like I think on paper, the ZV-E10 is just a great camera for the value, for the ability to grow and things like that. Now when it comes to beginners, maybe this is gonna be your first camera purchase or you're just new to creating videos and taking photos, I would say the easiest camera is actually the ZV-E10. They've really made it so easy with like 3 modes. It's photo, it's video, and slow-mo mode. And so you don't have to fish through a ton of modes like most cameras do. There's essentially just 3 on this camera. And their intelligent auto mode in both photo and video is just really smart on the Sony ZV-E10. Now, the Sony ZV-1 has incredible auto modes as well, but I just think it's a little bit more smarter on the ZV-E10. And when it comes to live streaming or if you do video conference calls, you can literally plug in a USB into your computer or laptop, and without any special software or any special hardware, you could simply live stream with this camera or use it like a webcam. And so really, I do believe that Sony thought of the beginner when it came to the ZV-E10, but that's just simply my opinion when it comes to the ZV-E10 being the better beginner camera. Obviously, with the simplicity of the ZV-1, it is also easy to use. Like, it's just a very small camera, turn it on, hit record type of vibe. I'm a fan of growing with your equipment though. So, that's just something to note. Like, maybe you are a beginner, but if you're watching this video, you wanna take some good videos and some good photos. And so why not learn and invest into a camera that'll get you better along the way? For the use of vlogging and travel, I would say straight out of the box, the Sony ZV-E10, because it is a little bit wider. With the kit lens being 16 to 50 millimeters, at 16, it's gonna be much wider than the ZV-1 at 24 millimeters equivalent. And so that's the assumption that when most people vlog, you want it to be more of a wider shot. So that comes straight out of box, the Sony ZV-E10. However, like I mentioned earlier, the ZV-1 has an attachment that you can invest in that costs $50. So then it puts you at the same price of the ZV-E10. But adding this attachment will give you a lot more of a wider shot as well. And a lot of people have liked this accessory added onto the ZV-1. Now, when it comes to just general vlogging, obviously some people want to do cinematic vlogs or they want to do high quality vlogs. I mean, I think the ZV-1's great just because of its size, honestly. To be able to put it in your pocket or your purse and then pull it out when you need it is honestly the best feature, as well as the internal ND filter. So that I would say when it comes to vlogging, I kind of like the ZV-1 for that. Now, when it comes to YouTube videos and maybe even some video podcasting and long form content, like I mentioned earlier, these all don't have record limits, which is great for long form content. However, with the overheating of the a6400, I kind of am not a fan of that because I can't use the full 4K for as long as I need to, and I need special conditions and things like that. That both of these cameras are gonna be great for YouTube and podcasting. I think it's by no surprise that the ZV-E10 just simply is the better camera out of all 3. If you need size and you need it to be small, then the ZV-1 would be a great option. But for the value, hands down, it just goes to the ZV-E10. And so my hope is that by watching this video, you are more educated in which one you should purchase. But if you have any questions, let me know down in the comments below. And I just wanna let you know about our free online class where we teach you how to make a part-time or even full-time income using YouTube. You can go to thinkmasterclass.com. You can actually create a living or supplemental income by using these right. And so if you're interested in that, be sure to check it out. We'll post links down in the description below, as well as to the links to these cameras. And if you want to see another video from Think Media, go ahead and click or tap the screen. But I can't wait to see you in a future one. Peace.